Hi, welcome to Cornelia Unravels-A knitting podcast. This is episode 2. So thank you to those of you who are coming back. I see that I have 45 people who have subscribed to my channel, so that's exciting that at least 44 of you might want to watch this again, as I know that my first subscriber was my husband, who is in the other room right now listening to me record this along with my mother, and they will be laughing right now because they can hear me and I've told them to be quiet and not listen. Watson, I can hear her laughing. Watson is at my knees, I'm patting his ears at the moment. So for those of you who didn't hear in my first podcast, I live in Melbourne, Australia with my husband Dean, my dog Watson, and our 2 cats, Susie and Jemima. So this podcast will go through the same structure as last time. I will have my finished objects first, then I will go through my works in progress. Then I've got my other knits and pieces segment, which today I'm going to talk about my featured whip. I've got 2 that I'm going to share with you today actually. And then I'm going to have a little bit of a knitting chat or a knitting thoughts kind of section about a shopping trip that I went on the other day. Then we'll have my stash feature / future knitting plans, acquisitions, and then a life update. I do have a couple of things to share in that today, so that is exciting. Behind me, I have a different background to last week. I thought I'd try something different. Some feedback was to sit further away from the camera, which I completely agreed with. I thought that my face was very giant in the previous episode. So I've moved out here, and this is the board game stash behind me. As I mentioned in the podcast last time, my board games collection rivals the knitting collection, but I thought try a different spot. There's some nice light coming in from this window. You can see my plants up there, so hopefully this is a good background. If it's not, if it's too busy or too distracting, let me know, because that was one thing that I was concerned about. Behind me though, I do have a couple of knitted things. I have this cat here, which was not knit by me, it was knit by my mum. I don't know any information about it, but it's very cute and has its own little spot on my shelf. And then behind me I also have my habitation throw, which I knit out of an advent calendar from Woolen Boon. I believe I purchased that in 2018 or 2019. They took a break from dyeing for a little bit. I believe they may have started dyeing again. But yes, that was a Disney themed advent calendar, and I decided to make the habitation throw. I made it a bit bigger than the pattern called for. I just decided to use all 20 grams of the mini skeins and then change colours when I ran out and got to approximately halfway. I did just run out of yarn at the end, so the very end of one of my corners just uses a little bit of different coloured yarn, but you can barely tell because I found something in my stash that was similar to what I already had. So that's just sitting on the chair behind me. Oh, one more knitting thing, what I'm wearing. So not a knitted item, but it is knitting related. So this is the sweatshirt from Twill & Print and has a skein of yarn in the middle surrounded by flowers. I think it might have been called her foliage print, yarn foliage print or something like that. But she screen prints these, and I've got another one as well that says relax and hibernate on it. So it's really comfy, and I thought it would be nice to wear so that I'm wearing something yarn related. All right, let's get into finished objects. Before I get into my finished objects, I just realized I forgot to mention what I'm drinking. I'm going to be a real knitting podcaster and share my mug and my drink. So I am drinking a coffee, a decaf coffee. It is the afternoon here, and I am using this mug here. Oops, sorry, it's a little bit dark there. Here, now this is from a company called Public Holiday. They are based in Queensland, maybe Brisbane, maybe the Gold Coast. I'm not sure where in Queensland exactly, but they are a couple who run this small business, and their mugs are quite hard to get. This one was definitely a little bit of a fastest finger first. I had my husband trying to get one mug, I was trying to get a different one. In the end, we both failed at getting those ones, and I managed to get this one, which was one that I really liked anyway. So yes, their updates definitely sell out very quickly, but I really like it. It's a really pretty mug. So that's what I'm drinking. And finished objects. So I don't have any finished objects today. I just have 2 half finished objects. Today is going to be a little bit of a sock heavy episode, I suppose. One of my featured whips is going to be a sock, and I have 2 socks to talk about today in my whips and finished objects section. So there will be a little bit of sock talk today, but I do have a couple of other things to share if sock knitting isn't your thing and not what you tend to spend your time making. So we'll start with the socks. So I've got 2 half finished socks. The first one I have is this one here. So this sock here is just a, I haven't woven in the ends yet because I haven't finished the other one. This sock here is just 64 stitches. It has a 15 round 2x2 rib cuff. I have knit them cuff down, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the heel. Actually, no, I'll talk about it now. So the heel is the Shortbread, sorry, the Simple Shortbread sock. Simple Shortbread heel and toe, and it's from the Simple Shortbread socks pattern by Larkspur knits. So what I've done with these socks, these were cast on just before Christmas. I had these grand plans that I was going to knit all of these Christmas socks that were going to be too hot to wear anyway. And I got this far into this one and then didn't get any further, and they've just been sitting in a bag. And the other day I just needed some simple knitting, so I just picked this up because I knew that all I needed to do was go around and around and around, and I knew that I was going to put in an afterthought heel, so I knew that I could just keep knitting until I got to the length of the sock. And I'm knitting them on 9-inch circular needles, but I'll show you the heel and the toe. So the heel has this slip stitch, sorry, I'll move back a bit so it's not as dark, this slip stitch detail, and looks like that from that angle. And then the toe has the same detail on the top, the slip stitch detail, and it looks like that from the side. So the pattern that the heel and the toe comes in is the Simple Shortbread socks by Larkspur knits. I saw it on Instagram when she first put it out, and I thought it just was a really pretty version of an afterthought heel. And I also wondered, just based on the look of it, because of this curve that happens in the decreases, I wondered if it would fit a little bit better than the afterthought heel that I have knit before. I've only knit one pair with an afterthought heel before, and I thought maybe this one would fit a little bit differently just because of the way that the decreases work. And these are for Dean, my husband, and he has tried them on, and I think they will be better than the ones that I have made previously. So it's definitely a heel and toe that I will try before. What I did do was went to where I thought I was going to start the toe, then I went back and put in the heel first, which is what the pattern recommends, and then once I had done that, I measured the length from the heel to the end, and it was the right place to put the toe in, so then I put the toe in. So the next one I'll probably just knit all the way down as a tube and then add the toe and then go back and add the heel last, now that I know which stripe I am going to put the heel into. So This yarn, I almost forgot to mention that. This yarn is called Cookie Swap, and it is by Woolens and Nosh. And the mini skein is just a contrasting one that is pretty much exactly the same color as this stripe in here. So that is half finished object number 1. Half finished object number 2. Now, you might recognize this yarn if you watched my last podcast. In my last podcast, I mentioned that I was going to be knitting a pair of socks for Mum. She chose this yarn, and it's her pair of birthday socks, even though her birthday has now passed. But as mentioned, we agreed that I just needed to finish them before she goes back to New Zealand. So what happened? These are not the same socks as the ones that I showed in my last podcast. I needed to knit the cuff a little bit longer, and it just looked strange. We weren't happy with it. I was knitting the all the frill socks by Summer Lee Designs, and for whatever reason that particular ruffle just looked a little bit strange with a longer 1x1 cuff, which is a bit unusual because this is also a long 1x1 cuff, but I think something about this stripe that comes in here just kind of breaks it up a little bit and it looks a little bit nicer. So this pattern is the Lucille socks, and I will check. They are designed by Marie-Pier Lessard. I believe she's French, so I may have mispronounced that, so apologies if I have. So they have a long 1x1 cuff, 1x1 rib cuff with the stripes, just a normal foot, and then the ruffle at the top, which is actually folded over with a purl along the top. And these are also designed so that you can wear them like this, or you can fold down the cuff and wear them like that as kind of shorty socks. So I thought they were really cute, and I'm really happy with them. Mum's really happy with them too. She'll wear them this length for, I would say, all of the time. For those of you who watched my last podcast, I also mentioned that these socks are for her to wear while she is cycling. And then when Mum watched the podcast, she said to me, people are going to think it's a little bit funny that I want frilly socks for cycling. So I said, I'll explain further in my next podcast. So last year I knit Mum a pair of socks also for her birthday, or just after her birthday, I think it was. And she wore them one day when it was really cold, and she thought, oh, well, I'll wear these woolly socks while I'm cycling. And she said to me that they're the best socks to wear while cycling because they keep her feet warm, unlike any other socks that she wears. Usually the wind goes through her shoes, through her socks, and her feet are still really cold. So wool socks are the way to go for winter cycling in particular. And Mum is definitely a person who doesn't care what people think. So if she wants to wear frilly socks while she's riding her bike, then she can wear frilly socks while riding her bike, which is fantastic. So I'm just adding to her fun socks collection that she can wear while she is cycling, and give her another pair of socks that her cycling group can comment on. And this time they can comment on the frill. So that's the story behind the frilly socks for riding a bike. Okay, you might have noticed that I have moved the camera slightly. I noticed that when I was holding these two socks up to the camera, it was getting a bit dark the closer I got. My phone is sitting on a cat scratching post. That's my current tripod, and I think it was underneath the shade of the scratching post a little bit. So hopefully, now that I've moved it a little bit forward, hopefully you have a little bit more light to see now. I didn't mention this sock is knit in Hedgehog Fibers BFL, their twist sock base, but I don't know what colorway it is. And the contrast stripe is knit in another woolen boon color, but again, I also don't know what colorway that is. This just came from my box of scraps. This was left over from a shawl that I had knit before. So we'll get into works in progress. I have 3, 4-ish works in progress. I don't really know that one of them really counts as a work in progress, but sorry. I'll show you anyway. I've just done a few rows. So my first work in progress, I'm going to try and remember to talk about project bags this time. Last time I talked about one. Last time I didn't really have many of my knits in project bags though. I have a tendency to just shove everything in the corner of the couch where I knit most of the time, and it just sits there not in a project bag. However, Watson has now taken to stealing more yarn than he used to. He used to pretty much ignore things, or balls of yarn especially. He would steal other things. He's stolen my crochet hook lots and lots of times, but he would ignore the balls of yarn. But he started to steal those, so I have been making sure that I'm putting things away a little bit better. Sorry. And the other day he even tried to steal a dishcloth that my husband is knitting, so apparently all the yarn things are not safe with him at the moment. He's lying on the floor sleeping innocently at my feet right now. So project bags. This one here is by the Little Grey Girl. She's in the UK. Hopefully you can see that. So it's got little sheep on it, and it's just a zip one. There are no pockets or anything inside this one. And not much to say really about this because it is just the second sock for my cookie swap socks for Dean. So this has a 9 color repeat as a self-striping sock. So I am 5 stripes into the second color repeat, and I think I've done 4 altogether for the length of sock he needs. So I'm almost halfway when it comes to the length of the sock. So that's my first work in progress. My second work in progress, again, not too much to say about it, but it is housed in a new bag. I bought this the other day. Mum and I popped out for the day and did a few things, and we stopped at Maker, who is based here in Melbourne, and she has recently got a quite a few bags from Crystal Cat Stitchery, who is also based somewhere in Victoria. I'm not sure if she's in Melbourne or if she's just in Victoria. I'm fairly sure. So this bag is by her. Show you nice and close because I love the little birdie that is on the lamb's ear. This bag does have pockets on the inside here, so they're really handy, and as you can see has the second sock that I am knitting for Mum. So I think I'm about 1 inch to half an inch to 1 inch from finishing the cuff. Then I will do the heel, and the frill is actually added on last, so I'll get to that at the end. So that's my second work in progress. The other thing on this bag, which I was really excited to get, is this little tag here. Hopefully that's focusing. So it's just a little laser cut tag to remind me how to Kitchener stitch. I'm usually pretty good at remembering how to do it, but I always forget my setup rows, and I always have to go back, and I always had to Google it and find the instructions for the setup rows and make sure that I was doing it correctly. So I saw this at the counter when I was checking out and thought I'll definitely get that. That's fantastic. And I have added it onto this bag because it's the one, those were the socks that I needed to Kitchener stitch the toe for. So that's a really handy little tool to have, and I think I'll just change it around on different project bags based on whatever I'm working on at the time that is likely to need Kitchener stitch. I then have, pop this down here, what do I have? Let's just pause. Sorry about that. I had a huge mind blank, even though my projects are sitting right here next to me and my notes are on the other side. But instead of looking at those and using those, I just decided to try and remember what my next 2 works in progress were. Obviously, that wasn't so successful. So, sip of coffee, and then we'll get to the next one. So, my next work in progress, I actually am going to frog. It is not going to be a work in progress for very long, but I will talk about that a little bit later in my other knits and pieces segment. But I thought I would show you where I did get up to anyway, and I wanted to talk about a little issue that I had with this and see if anyone had any advice or tips and tricks, because I have had a little bit of frustration with this, and I apologize, I'm also halfway through a row, so a drink plus halfway through a row, maybe on episode 2. I'm already a real knitting podcaster. So this is the Zipper Slipover by Petite knit. I last week was still knitting the collar, which as you can see is folded over. So I've finished the collar and I had started the shaping on the back of the neck. It has some raglan increases, which I was working on. But here was the issue that I had, and I'm interested to see if anyone has any advice. I have a suspicion as to what I might have done, and I was talking to my friend Lucy about it, and I'm just laughing because Karen of Knitting and Labradors also often says I was talking to my friend Lucy, and this time it's me saying I was talking to my friend Lucy, who is this nanny knits. Sorry, Lucy. I was talking to her and she wondered if I was right in my assumption, but what's happened is these increases here are totally fine, and these increases here, this side's not too bad, but as you can see, this side here is very holy. So you do the increases on both the right side and the wrong side for this, and my theory is that on my very first increase I did something wrong with my make one on the wrong side, and because of that basically the stitches aren't sitting in the right place, so I haven't been picking up the correct bar to increase each time because the increase happens in the same place. That's my theory, but if you happen to know of something else that I might have done to have made this mistake, I would love it if you told me, because I actually did this, frogged back to the beginning of the shaping, did it again, and the exact same thing happened. Every single other set of increases fine, just one set of increases happens to be really holy. So please let me know if you have any ideas, or if you think that I'm correct in my assumption as to what I might have done wrong. But this is where it's at. This is so squishy. This would be so lovely to wear. It is a bit of a shame that I'm going to frog it, which I will explain why later. Because it's so nice. It's so nice and squishy. It's really thick. It'll be really warm around your neck in winter, but that's okay. This particular slipover is not for me, but I will be using this yarn for something else. So it won't be the last that you see of this yarn, just the last that you'll see of this as a project in this state. And my last work in progress, bag. This bag is by Mountain State Stitches. So she is my friend Jenny. They are really lovely bags that she makes. They're nice and sturdy. nice and squishy with a drawstring at the top. So I highly recommend purchasing a bag from her. Her updates also can be a little bit tricky to snag, and this bag actually was a gift from another friend. So this is from Jenny of Mountain State Stitches. Then my last work in progress is what I showed as my featured whip last time. So the goal of my featured whip section is to re-motivate myself to work on some of my whips that are just languishing in my corner of my lounge. So if you watched last episode, you will have seen this bag before. It is by Petite Knits, who is based here in Melbourne, and she watched my last episode. Say hi if you're watching again. As I mentioned last time, I really also like her bags. They're quilted, they've got pockets on the inside with a drawstring closure as well, and I just bought Mum a couple for her birthday, and she really likes them too. She was excited to have her knitting projects in a project bag because she was jealous of my significant project bag collection, and so I bought her two for her birthday. In here is my 2022 Advent shawl. So this is the Solstice Engrain by Sarah Opie, who is S Knits on Instagram, and it was the pattern that she created to go with the Explorer Knits and Fibers Winter Solstice calendar. I was motivated to work on it just a teensy bit. So I got a couple of rows in, and I've put in a progress keeper too. This progress keeper is a rainbow one by Hello Lavender. So I've got a couple of her rainbow ones from one of her recent updates, and also one that was from the Into the Wild collection that she collaborated with Explorer Knits and Fibers for that collection as well. So I've done, I think, only 4 rows. It's not really much progress, but I am at the point where I need to wind another mini skein. So that was a little bit of what stopped my progress that evening, because I needed to stop and actually do something about it before I carried on too far with this particular section of colour. So I am looking forward to working on this a little bit more. That's what it looks like at the moment. But yes, a little bit of progress made. I will move the progress keeper up my 4 rows so that I can hopefully show progress for the next podcast. So I will pop that away, and we will move into the other knits and pieces segment. I feel like I'm talking at 1,000,000 miles an hour today, so I apologize if I am. I will try to slow down. I actually think I'm more nervous than last time. I mentioned that to Mum and Dean before I started, that I think for episode 2 I'm more nervous because I think it needs to be, I don't know, better, or I want people to want to keep watching. You know, there are those of you who have subscribed and you want to watch again, which is so cool, and hopefully there'll be other people who also subscribe and want to watch again as well. So I kind of maybe today felt the pressure of needing to make it just as good as last time or better than last time. I don't know, but I'll try to slow down, and hopefully you're enjoying this episode as well. Or if this is your first episode, I hope you are enjoying it, full stop. I will jump into my other knits and pieces segment. So this is just an opportunity really for me to talk about whatever I want. So at the moment, my plan is to share some of my languishing whips with you, ones that I haven't touched in a while. As I said with the shawl that I did a few rows on, that was my featured whip from last time. Just a kind of way to get myself motivated to work on things a little bit more and kind of pull them out and actually see what's in the bag, so that I know what I have and know what I can work on in the future. So I've got 2 to share with you today. the first one, actually both of these are in other Mountain State Stitches bags as well. So that was this bag here that had my zipper slipover in it. So I've also got this one here, which is also by Jenny of Mountain State Stitches. And in here, now this is one of those things, and I'm sure that many of you have done this before, where you have a work in progress and then you desperately want to cast on something new, but your needles are on your work in progress and you decide to pull off the needles. And I'm sure that most of you think that through and put some needle stoppers on the ends of your cables, or put your knitting on waste yarn. Both things I could have done, but I didn't. I just took the needles out and tried to pull the project tight on the needle on the cable, and then of course that didn't work. So one of the things I need to do is pick up stitches in order to pick this up again and put some needles on it, because I still don't have any needles on it. So this doesn't have a lot of progress, but it is the Stripey. Right, pull that out so I can pull it closer. This is the Stripey Turtle Tank by Emily Curtis. She is MWeCurt on Instagram, and she has the podcast 108 Stitches. So this was her first knitting design. So it is obviously knit bottom up. If that wasn't knit bottom up, then I would have a very, very, very wide neckline, which is definitely not my thing. I know that lots of people love a boat neck, but that's not my thing. So this is knit bottom up, and as you can see, and as indicated by the name, is stripy and is a tank top. So it's a really lovely pattern. I like it a lot, and I've seen lots of different iterations of it on Instagram. Every single one looks really cool with people's different choice of color palette. She did a collaboration with Big Little Yarn Co., who is Mel. I really, really like her yarn. I've got quite a lot of it. I've been purchasing her Studio Ghibli, or Studio Ghibli. I'm not sure which way it's pronounced, but I have been purchasing her sock club that she was doing. She is on maternity leave, is about to have her baby, hopefully has had her baby, I'm not sure. So she's on maternity leave at the moment, so it will be a little bit before she gets back up and running with her yarn dyeing business, but she collaborated with Emily to create kits for the Stripey Turtle Tank. So I purchased 2 of the kits. This is the main color here. I'll see if I've got the tag. Of course I don't have the tag, but this is the main color. And then it's striped with 5 mini skeins. But you obviously could use as many different colors as you wanted to. You could do a 2-color version of this tank top if you wanted to, and it would look fantastic. You could do 3 colors, you could do whatever you wanted to. But this particular kit had 5 mini skeins, so I've got 4 of them in a ball already. And this is the last yellowy color. So that's all of them together. So they will be the stripes. Once I pick this back up again and I pick up the stitches and work out where I'm up to, I think it will go quite quickly, because it is just around and around and around for quite a while before you then do the shaping for the top half of the tank top. And because of the decreasing that you end up doing for the shaping, I think the top will go quite quickly as well. So once I do get into this, I think it will be a project that I kind of get through relatively quickly. It is fingering weight yarn, so you know, maybe a little bit longer than obviously if it was a heavier weight, but I am looking forward to picking this back up, Maybe not the best time to pick it back up, however, because we are now heading into winter, so a tank top is probably not going to be my priority when it comes to knitting, but I would like to have it finished by next spring at least, so I can kind of wear it under a jacket or something in the kind of transition period of seasons. So that is the Stripey Turtle Tank by Emily Curtis. And then my second, I was only going to share that one, but then I realized that I have this one here, which is another sock, and I've finished one of the socks already, and I'm already relatively far through the second sock, I suppose. So I kind of thought I'll share that because that might motivate me to pick these up and finish them, because I think this would be a relatively quick finish and something that I could share quite soon. So these socks, I'll show you the finished one. These socks are the Spring Rain socks, and they are by Northern Knits and Purl. She has a podcast, as well as she has quite a few different sock patterns. I have knit this pattern before. This is the aforementioned first pair of socks I knit my mum that she wears bike riding, and is her favourite pair of the socks that I have knit her. She's worn them quite a few times since she's been here staying with us. However, I don't know that I'm the hugest fan of longer socks. I think that shorty socks are going to be the thing that I knit for myself the most, just based on what I like and what types of shoes I wear and things like that. So I modified the pattern slightly just by shortening the leg. So I've turned these into shorty socks. So I think I did the recommended number of rounds for the cuff in the pattern, and then I did 10 rounds of the leg pattern after there's a cable detail. So after I finished the cable detail, I did that as per the pattern, and then I did 10 rounds of the top of the leg, and then I just went straight into the heel flap. So it has a really lovely heel flap. Let's do that. There we go. That's focused for you. So the second sock is, I feel sure I'm at the end of the heel flap and need to start the heel turn. So that seems like a logical place that I would have stopped. I'll need to double check and count my rows. But then once I've done the heel turn, then all I need to do is the gusset decreases and the rest of the foot and the toe. So really, this could be finished relatively quickly if I just sat down and got onto it. So maybe that'll be my next sock that I work on after I finish the partners for both of these ones. So that's my other featured whip, something that I'd like to get back on my needles, or something that I want to reinvigorate my interest in. And another Jenny of Mountain State Stitches bag. This one's a small, one of her small ones, a sock one, and also was a gift. Okay. So I mentioned that I was going to talk a little bit more about the zipper slipover and why it is going to be frogged. So I suppose these are some of my knitting thoughts, or something that I have done recently to make me think about knitting differently. So yesterday we went shopping. Mum needed some bits and pieces, I needed some bits and pieces, and we needed to go to the optometrist to get another eye test. Both my husband and I needed to, and get new glasses. So we went out and did that yesterday. Now, we were in a clothes shop and Mum was having a look, and as she was wandering around, I was just talking to her, and I noticed that in this particular shop there were quite a few vests. I would call them a vest, but slipover seems to be the main term that I see in patterns on Ravelry. So I saw quite a few vests or slipovers, whatever you want to call them. And I said to Mum, I said, I think I might try these on just to see how they fit me, because they're not an item of clothing that I have in my wardrobe. The only vest that I have in my wardrobe is one that zips up from the bottom and is kind of puffy and has a fluffy hood. It's one of my favorite items of clothing, actually. I wear it through winter all the time, just with a long sleeve top underneath. But I thought I'll try these on. They had quite a few different styles, and just see what they look like on me and see how that can inform some knitting plans that I have. Given that, you know, I'm kind of knitting something blind, I have no idea what the style looks like on me since it's not something that I already have in my wardrobe. So I tried on 3 different vests. One of them was had a zip maybe from about here, so similar to the zipper slipover, but just a little bit of a shorter zip and not as high a collar. But the thing that is different to the zipper slipover is that the armhole, or the vest, I guess, stopped here, so just at the top of the shoulder, whereas the zipper slipover kind of has a little bit more of a drop shoulder effect and kind of stops maybe about here on your arm. So I tried on the one with the armholes that came up just directly on your shoulder bone, and then also tried on another one that also had a half zip, but the sleeves were more of a drop shoulder, so probably similar to where the seam is on this jersey that I'm wearing here. Went to about here and then stopped. And then the last one was kind of quite a lot of positive ease, a cable design, and kind of went even further down my arm, almost like a t-shirt length, but was definitely vest style. So it was a really interesting thing to do, and I'm glad that I did it, as I now know that the zipper slipover is not going to be the vest for me. So the vest that stopped, or the slipover that stopped here, was the one that suited me the most. Anything that then kind of went down as a drop shoulder and then stopped, for whatever reason, I wasn't as happy with how that style looked on my body. And that is the style of the zipper slipover. So I've decided to frog the zipper slipover, and instead, I guess I could modify the armholes so that it stopped sooner, but there are so many patterns out there that I don't know that that's what I feel like doing, especially since I've been having so many issues with the raglan increases, that I think it's probably time that I just say, no, I won't knit on that one, and I'll do something different, have a bit of a fresh start. So I think I'm going to knit the terrazzo slipover instead, also by Petite Knit, as it has the armhole stop here, and I quite like the split hem at the bottom as well. And I'll just see what I want to do about the neck when it's finished. It has a turtleneck for that particular pattern, and I'll see if that's the style that I want, or if I just kind of want to shorten that. However, when I did try on the slipover that had the half zip that was drop shoulder, so it was very, very similar to the zipper slipover in fit. It wasn't the same in style, but it was definitely the same in fit. And I said to Mum, oh, I don't like this as a vest, but it would look really nice with sleeves. So I think a project that has now added itself to my queue is going to be the zipper sweater by Petite Knit, because obviously it's the same but with sleeves, and I think that would be a style that looks quite nice on me. So I just thought that that was a really interesting exercise to do, not something that I've really thought of doing before. I don't have a lot of knitwear in my closet that's not something that I've knit myself, and I haven't knit a whole lot of sweaters or vests or cardigans or things like that. The majority of my knitting is shawls and hats, really. So I don't have a lot of things to compare it to, and I haven't tried to knit every single style that there is out there. So I think that was a really interesting exercise, and maybe something that I would recommend if you are looking at knitting a style that you haven't knit before. Maybe just pop into a shop. It seems to be here anyway in the southern hemisphere where we're heading into winter. It seems that knitwear that looks like hand knit, you know, lots of cables, all of those sorts of things, seems to be what is the in thing at the moment. So I think there's probably quite a lot out there if you want to go and actually try something in a similar fit on before you knit that style if you can, and then you'll have a good idea of how you feel about how that particular style of garment fits on your body. So I think that was a really worthwhile exercise, definitely for me, and something that I thought I would talk about here in this segment, because it wasn't really something that I'd thought of doing prior to that. It was a spur of the moment decision that, oh, this is a good idea, I should do this, and feel like it had really beneficial results for my knitting, because now I'm not going to spend a really long time knitting this slip over and then decide, oh, I don't really like it, it's not my style. Now I know that type of slip over isn't my style. However, that drop shoulder style, I mean, obviously I'm wearing that in this at the moment, is something that I do like on me, as long as it does have sleeves. So I think that was just really beneficial for me, and something that I will think about when I'm wanting to knit something else in the future that is a new style. Especially, this is, I guess, a convenient season for me because it's winter, and it does seem that knitwear that is in similar styles to what we see lots of pattern designers creating does kind of seem to be the style. So then I can go and I can try something on and then work out if that's something that I want to then spend my time knitting myself. So have a go at doing that. If you are not sure, I definitely recommend going into the shop, trying a few things on in a similar style to what you want to knit, and see if it's something that you want to pursue, because we know that it's really sad when you finish a garment and decide that it's not really what you wanted and not what you were looking for, especially if it's something that you were super excited about knitting, and then you have spent all of this time on it, you put it on at the end and it's just not what you want. That can definitely be a really disappointing feeling. So one way that you could avoid it, and I'm definitely glad something that I've done, because now I can avoid finishing the slip over and being disappointed. Instead, I can rip it out now and it's something that I'm excited about and know will look or suit me and what I want for myself a lot better. So sorry, that was a little bit of a ramble about that experience, but it was really good to do that. It was really positive and something that you could give a try. My stash feature is this yarn here by Stress Knits yarn. Maybe that's a bit better. I really like her yarn. I've got quite a lot, and as I mentioned last time, I've been using her yarn in a granny stripe blanket, which hasn't had any progress on it, as I have bought her yarn calendars a couple of years in a row. So her yarn is something that I have used quite a lot. I really like her color palette. This has sat in my stash for quite some time. It was originally intended, there are 5 skeins of it, but here are 3 of them. It was originally intended to be a Nurtured sweater by Andrea Mowry. I cast it on and then it was knitting the sleeves in Magic Loop, but the stitch pattern, Magic Loop and me were not friends, so I ripped it out and the yarn has just sat there. This yarn does have an immediate plan. It is going to be a very soon future cast on. I wanted to participate in the Knit Diverse Knit Along, I believe that's what it's called, by Amy Sher. She is Amy Sher Makes on Instagram. So she is encouraging people to knit with yarn dyed by or knit with patterns created by Asian and Pacific Islander people, as it is Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, I believe, in May. And so that's something that she's encouraging as a knit along. And I really like her colouring book raglan pattern that she has released relatively recently, and it's using worsted weight yarn, and so I thought, perfect, that's a really good opportunity to use up this, which has just been sitting in my stash. So when Mum and I went to the yarn store recently, I grabbed another skein to go with it as the contrasting stripe. So this in theory is an acquisition, not a stash feature, but I purchased, that's coming up very blue, maybe back here it's a little bit true to color, but then it's a little bit hard to see. It's coming up very blue, but it's definitely a little bit more greeny blue. This is by Prosper Yarn, and it is the colorway Last Echo. And I didn't mention that the Stress Knits color, I don't think I did, is Golden Hour. So those are the two colors together. So the yellow will be the main color, and the blue will be the 3 contrasting stripes that are on the body and the sleeve. So I'm going to cast that on as soon as possible, and I will show you that I have knit a swatch. So this is how they play together. Hopefully you can see that. It's getting a little bit darker outside. There we go. So again, that blue's a little bit more greeny blue in real life, but that's the swatch. I wanted to make sure that the colors did look nice together, and obviously check my gauge as well. So I'm happy with the fabric. I think I'm a little bit off with gauge, but I haven't blocked this. So once I block it, I will be fine with gauge. So I'm going to cast that on as soon as possible, and then I will have some more yarn that's been sitting in my stash out of my stash. Okay. So the last yarny section that I have is my acquisition section. So if you are not interested in acquisitions and you're not interested in the kind of what I've been up to, bits and pieces at the end, then thank you so much for watching so far. I hope you would like to watch my podcast again, but I understand if watching what people have purchased isn't something interesting to you, and I understand if you're not really bothered about what I have been up to recently. But I will get into acquisitions from one shop. So I recently put in an order with Knitting for Olive. I hadn't tried the yarn before, but was definitely excited to give it a go. So these all have projects in mind. I'm just trying to grab the last color. Just going to tip it out on the floor. And Watson's probably going to come and steal it. All right. So these are I've got varying amounts of each of these, but I'll just show you one ball of each. So these are the different colors that I got. Hand is shaking. It's a bit hard to hold them all. So this one here is Knitting for Olive Merino, and it is in the colorway Marzipan. See if you can see that. Oops, that might be upside down. So this is going to be the main color in a Stria or Stria cardigan by Andrea Mowry. I've got some mini skeins from Sorella yarn that I will use as the contrast. This one here is their soft silk mohair. I was really interested to try this because I had heard really good things about how soft it is. I think have mixed feelings about mohair. Sometimes I prefer a suri to a mohair. I find it a bit softer, but this feels really nice. I was really happy with this. So this is in the colorway Caramel. Oh, I need to hold it here. And this is going to be held together with another colorway that I have called Bear, also from Sorella yarn. And that's going to be a vest slip over of some description, but I have yet to choose the pattern that it's going to be. And then the last I have is, this is the same colorway in the soft, this one's the merino, and this one is the soft silk mohair. And this is the Dusty Rose colorway. And these are going to be held together to make with, and I'll use some Spin Cycle that I've got as well, So these will be held together to kind of hopefully create a little bit closer to a sport DK weight, to make the Great Gingham Raglan by Jessie May. So I may swatch with and without the mohair just to see if I need to use this for getting gauge, but that's the plan for these. So that's pulled out because the dog stole it and I grabbed it off him. So those are my acquisitions. I have, as I said, I've got varying amounts of each of them, but I'm really excited to knit with these, and I was really happy with I'm really happy with the quality of them, and I'm really happy with this mohair. I think it'll be nice and soft. So that's what I have purchased recently, alongside the Prosper yarn that I mentioned just before, and the project bag from Crystal Cat Stitchery. So, life chat, the last section. All right, so life chat, things that I've been up to. I said last time that I don't really do much and I wouldn't really have much to say. However, this time I kind of have done some things in the last week and have a couple of things to share with you. I was going to share another board game with you, but I think I'll wait until next week because I'm concerned that I've talked a lot and that I might be boring you. So I will leave that and you can get a board game chat at the end of next time's podcast instead. So the things I've been up to, Mum, as I mentioned, is a keen cyclist. That's something she's been really enjoying and something that she's been encouraging me to get into. So over the last week, we have been out and about purchasing bikes for myself and another new bike for my husband and getting all of that organised. So we've gone out for a few bike rides now, a couple just around our estate and then the area that we live in. And then we went down to a cycle trail that runs alongside a highway that's near my house. So that was kind of cool to be cycling along the highway that I normally drive along. And I think tomorrow we have a plan to go for a bit of a drive and go for a ride along the Merry Creek Trail here in Melbourne. So that will be fun. Maybe we'll get a coffee or some lunch on our way as well. So that's been fun to get into that. Nice to get outside, nice to do something a little bit different. And then the other thing that we did was in 2019, so pre-pandemic, Dean had purchased some tickets to an artist a concert or a gig by an artist named Corey Henry. So he's kind of a jazzy, bluesy, funk organist and someone who he really enjoys listening to, and I really enjoy listening to as well. So we had bought tickets for that, but obviously 2020 came around and the concert was supposed to be in April and that couldn't go ahead. It was then rescheduled for 2021, but the international travel restrictions again meant that that couldn't happen. So finally, 2022, the concert was rescheduled for, and we went to that on Wednesday night. So that was really fun. It was a little bit strange to go out and do something like that because we have kind of been the stay at home, not do too much type of people. And it was a little bit kind of crazy to go out and be in amongst a larger group of people, but it was really enjoyable and definitely it was worth it. So that was kind of cool to go out and do that, and he was really fun to listen to. So those are the two kind of main things that I have been up to aside from my knitting. And we're going to go on holiday next week, so maybe in my next podcast you'll get some holiday pictures or things like that. So that's my life chat. Maybe Watson will want to come and say hi. He hasn't featured yet in today's podcast because I am not sitting in a weird place. Well, I am, but not as weird as last time. So he's not as curious as to what's going on. Watson! Watson! Come here! Watson, come here! You've got to come be on the podcast. Everyone likes you. Come on. He doesn't want to play ball. He is there. Whoops, that's my thumb. There he is, looking at me, saying, Mum, why? Why? Come here. Come on. Here. What's in? What's in? Up. Come on. You're going to make me look silly. Up. Come on. Come here. Mom, he's not coming. Are you not recording? Yeah, I'm recording. Come on. Come on. Yeah. There he is. Got to have the Watson feature on the YouTube. So it can be the Watson channel, not the Cornelia Unravels channel. He's going to hop down now. Is he? No, he's not. Yes, he is. There we go. All right. So with that interlude, thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, I'll do the general YouTube plug. If you like the video, then give it a thumbs up. If you want to watch again, please subscribe. I was someone who was terrible and never subscribed to people's videos, and I would just go and find them again when I knew they had a new episode. But then I realized, and same with commenting, I often wouldn't comment on people's videos. And then when I got comments and subscriptions on my videos, I was so excited. So I definitely have made sure that a couple of channels that I wasn't subscribed to earlier, I now am. And I have been trying to comment on a few more people's YouTube videos because it's very exciting to read the comments. So if you want to tell me something, tell me what you're knitting on, tell me something exciting you're doing, give me some advice on my raglan increases, subscribe if you would like to watch again, and hopefully I will see you in another 2 weeks or so. Thanks for watching. Bye.